I'm not seeing much about Gaza in the corporate news anymore. And it could make people think that everything's okay for the Palestinians, and that's not the case. In fact, this story has been heavily suppressed, and I think more people need to know about it. And that's the Gaza wedding. Israeli forces massacre 6 Palestinians celebrating a wedding at the Gaza school shelter. This isn't a truth. It's a bloodbath, said a relative of some of the victims, who included women, an infant, and a teenage girl. Yeah, Palestinians can't even get married. This isn't the first time, by the way, that Israel has been known to do this. Bomb Palestinian weddings, or show up to a Palestinian wedding and start firing at people or firing in the air. They've also done this to Palestinian funerals. It's a sick society full of sick people. But this story isn't getting a lot of attention. Shout out to Common Dreams for sharing this. Funerals were held Saturday in northern Gaza for 6 people, including children, massacred the previous day by Israeli tank fire during a wedding celebration at a school sheltering displaced people, as the number of Palestinians killed during the tenuous 10-week ceasefire rose to over 400. So this wedding was held at one of the locations where people are allowed to shelter. So first of all, Israel is, of course, violating the law as usual. 2, there is no real ceasefire. That October plan, it was a fake ceasefire plan. Israel has continued to kill Palestinians, and they're using different excuses to do so, except with this situation, they don't deny it. So we cannot forget about what is happening in Gaza. On Friday, the IDF, that tank, blasted the second floor of the Gaza Martyr School, which was housing Palestinians displaced by the 2-year war on Gaza in the Al Tufa neighborhood of Gaza City. So again, that was a sheltering location. Al Jazeera and other news outlets reported that the attack occurred while people were celebrating a wedding. Here's one from Omar. At the very moment when voices of joy rose to resist this destruction, devastation, and sorrow, and in the courtyard that people thought was a shelter, not a place of death, fire rained down from the sky. A school that was meant to protect their names from exposure. Yeah, they can't even celebrate. They can't have a moment of joy, a moment of happiness. Israel has to come in and has to rain hell on everything. They don't want the Palestinians to laugh. They don't want them to smile. They don't want them to have joy, and they damn sure don't want them to have peace. Al-Shifa Hospital Director Mohammed Salmiya said those slain included a 4-month-old infant, a 14-year-old girl, and 2 women. At least 5 others were injured in the attack. It was a safe area and a safe school, and suddenly they began firing shells without warning, targeting women, children, and civilians. Abdullah al-Nadar, who lost relatives, including 4-month-old Ahmed al-Nadar in the attack, told Agence France Presse. Let me go down here. Witnesses said that IDF troops subsequently blocked first responders, including ambulances and civil defense personnel, from reaching the site for over 2 hours. So then this is the other thing. Not only do they come in and they kill the people, but then they prevent aid, the ambulances, from coming in to try to help those people. Just because you were hit doesn't mean that you're dead. So if they try to prevent the ambulance from coming in to give them medical treatment, they're sending them to their death. All of this, by the way, is against international law. Imagine if in the United States, something happened and people, let's say it was a car accident, and people were injured in a car accident. Now imagine if all of a sudden the National Guard showed up or the police showed up and they blocked off the road and they wouldn't allow the ambulance to come in and treat the people who were in the car accident. We would think that's disgusting, right? Something to think about. We gathered the remains of children, elderly infants, women, and young people. This is coming from Nafiz al-Nadar, another relative of the infant and others killed in Friday's attack. Unfortunately, we called the ambulance and the civil defense, but they couldn't get by the Israeli army. That is a war crime. So do you see these things? But this isn't new. They've been doing this. And now you're not hearing about this. Because once Donald Trump said, okay, we got the ceasefire deal all set, have you guys noticed that corporate media is not really talking about Gaza anymore? They're not really telling you about the number of Palestinians that are still being killed after this so-called ceasefire. And that's intentional. Hell, you know, CBS News isn't going to talk about it. Now you know who the ownership is. It's very, very sad. Very sad. Let me scroll down here because there's one part I can't show, but we get into this part. The IDF said that during operational activity in the area of the Yellow Line in the northern Gaza Strip, a number of suspicious individuals were identified in command structures, and that troops fired at the suspicious individuals to eliminate that threat. Okay, so now being suspicious means you're getting an automatic death sentence? How is that any different from what we say here in the United States when we say, oh my God, the police killed this kid because they thought he was suspicious? Now you see where the behavior comes from. This isn't right at all. It's wrong. And nobody's really talking about, except for independent media, nobody's really talking about this. This is from Common Dreams. The Yellow Line is a demarcation boundary between areas of Gaza under active Israeli operation, more than half of the Strip's territory, including most agricultural and strategic lands, and those under the control of Hamas. The claim of casualties in the area is familiar. The incident is under investigation. And in fact, I'll show you their statement here. Brian Toshman said official IDF account admits that they bombed a wedding in the part of the Strip they don't control during the ceasefire because they saw suspects in controlling structures. And here's that statement here from the IDF. I read this part already. Immediately after the identification, the forces fired towards the suspects. The claim of casualties in the area is familiar. The incident is under investigation. The IDF regrets any harm to uninvolved parties and acts as much as possible to minimize the harm. So first of all, it's their land. And basically Gaza is this police state now. If I want you to envision that, that's how I want you to imagine it. And imagine you can't walk or just go anywhere. At first, they were all like enclosed in Gaza. Now they have even less space in Gaza. And then they have this heavy armed presence surrounding them. And the IDF soldiers are just taking advantage of that opportunity, shooting people whenever they feel like it. Oh, they're suspicious, so we're going to go after them too. What's suspicious about a baby? What's suspicious about a child? And you will not hear this on Barry Weiss's CBS News. And if the Ellison family continues to have their way, you won't hear it on CNN News either. Fox News doesn't really go in that direction for most part anyway. But it was very weird to me that more people are not discussing this story. A wedding. But again, like I said, it's not the first time. Rick goes on to say here, yes, Israel bombed a wedding in Gaza today. No, the mainstream media is not interested. Everybody's seeing it. All of us that were on social media, we're all seeing it. All of us. Ann says they killed people sheltering in a school, including a baby. The number of people killed since the ceasefire now stands at 401. And that's putting it mildly. So I am begging, especially of independent media as well. I know there's a lot going on in the news, but let's not forget about what's happening in Gaza, because I'm noticing it's starting to become less and less. I'm not seeing it as much anymore on corporate media. Just the same thing happened during the protests, the pro-Palestinian protests. When they first started, corporate media covered it a lot. And as time went by, they stopped covering it. And people were saying, look, they're not protesting against Trump. And that was false. People were still having pro-Palestinian protests under the Trump administration, but the media stopped covering it. So don't forget about it, guys. Don't forget about it. Hey, guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.